You got it? Okay. Everyone, please repeat after me. Amantuam Panatir.
Amantuam Panatir.
Sawek Tuam Panatir.
Sawek Tuam Panatir.
Autuauma.
Autuauma.
Keti Paharu.
Keti Paharu.
The translation?
Give yourself to God daily. Keep yourself for God daily. And may tomorrow be as today.
We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Netzeru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, the light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Ma'ati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibility in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akaru, true of thought, word, and deed, to our highest realities. And in the moments of crisis, in the dark nights of the soul, when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down, so it is and so shall it be. Everyone say, Amen Ma'az.
Amen Ma'az.
Ma'akaru.
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 Let me see. We're live. Reading Facebook and YouTube. I know a bunch of y'all have been like, hold up, it's been a while since it ain't been up here, but never fear, Nasib will be back in action behind this podium at the next communion, and he's looking forward to sharing some powerful insight with all of you at that time. But for today, I'm actually going to step away from the mic because I'm not actually the one speaking today. Today we've invited a member of our royal court to share some words of wisdom with all of you. And I'm excited to hear what she's been working on, and I know she has something powerful to share. She's been a member of our community for a long time, so this is an opportunity for her to put into her own words the wisdom, the insight that she's gained over her spiritual journey. So can everybody give Wepet Ma'akara some energy, please?
Open my eyes. That was warm, thank you. I'm not that tall, so. Just so I don't break it, please. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Uncle Ma'ad, everyone. So it's been a while since I've been up here. I mean, I've done communions in a span of 20 years, so not that many, but it's good to be up here. And I just wanted to share some thoughts, share some things that I've been thinking about that has been on my heart. And so that's what I plan to do. So let me just move these books and get started here. And so basically, I can start off by at least talking a bit about my inspiration for today's communion. And so that would be family, communion, community, reciprocity. These are things that I see all the time, just sitting here looking at everybody. This is what I consider to be my family very easily. I don't need to have a thought or a second thought about that. The other part of why I wanted to do this topic is because of just the inspiration that I've had from my own experiences being a part of the Temple of Anu. So I know when you guys look at me, you're like, wow, she's just perfect, Okay. So I'm always striving for perfection like everybody else, right? But of course, like everyone, we all go through things. We all go through some really tough and dramatic things. And so I just know that when I've gone through those things, that I've had so much support from my community. And so I wanted to talk a bit about that. And I also wanted to kind of explore and see, what is community? What is community really built of? Is it just as simple as, hey, Sinette, hey, Sin, and that's family? Is family just when we're in a room for a couple of hours and then we go on about our business? So those are some of the things that I, wanted to talk about. And so those are my inspirations. And so if you don't know, I feel like I need to restate my name again, because not everybody knows me, okay? But my name is Webet Ma'akra Neb Menta. So Webet means she who's the opener of the way. So if you're familiar with Webwat and Pooh, that's pretty much me. I'm the first face that you see outside before everything gets started, so I'm welcoming everybody here. And Ma'akra and Neb Menta means one who sees the spirit and light of Ra in all things to establish it on earth. And so my clan is the Menta clan. All right, so that's who I am. And so basically, just a little bit about my background is that I'm a sociology major, so I'm a sociologist, and I teach sociology. And the other thing that I do is I work in the mental health field as well. And so a lot of times those things just kind of combine and mesh together. There are some similarities with that with both, you're working with human beings, just a different capacity, so they overlap. And so that will be a part of, some of the things that I'm going to talk about regarding family. And so the first thing, just in terms of a little bit of research, is that I took a look at some of the Black sociologists, because unfortunately, as a professor, they still talk a lot about Emile Durkheim and, Karl Marx, and not to say that their theories are, that they contributed to sociology, but there's a wider range of people that contributed to that study as well, right? And so the first person that I wanted to talk a little bit about is Robert B. Hill. And he is a sociologist. He's a Black sociologist. He did a lot of work with civil rights, did a lot of work with equality, those types of things. And so when I was doing my research, I wanted to understand a bit more about the definition of family, the definition of community. And so basically, Robert B. Hill, he came up with this book called, or study, The Strength of the Black Family. And so I don't know if you guys have heard of that. And so it's considered to be pretty major regarding social work and regarding sociology. A lot of times when we do think about Black communities and Black families, it's largely about how broken and how torn we are and how dysfunctional we are. And so we did have an early wave of sociologists and folks that contributed to social work that said, no, it don't always gotta be that way. Like, you don't always gotta utilize these words, we're broken, we're dysfunctional, so on and so forth. There are some things that are key and paramount in our idea of family and of community. And so, of course, I see that here. And so, Mr. Hill, he came up with these 5 tenets to the Black family, right? And so, strong work orientation, strong religious orientation, bam, we definitely got that here, right? Strong belief in family, strong achievement orientation, and adaptability of family roles. And so I thought that was pretty cool because we could see that here. We could see that within our dynamics within the Temple of Anu. And we also believe that, the reason why we had to have those 4 platforms for the way that we see the Black family is really for our survival. It's really because we're in this ever-changing society that we live in, right? Just thinking about all the things that are going on now, there's so much war. The ism still exists, such as racism. We still have to deal with those things. Classism, all these different ideas that people have of what they think that Black folks are. As I said earlier, dysfunctional, we can't get it together. We can't unify. And so even as early as the 60s, when he came up with this literature, he was already trying to turn that around and say, no, we do have some solidarity. Family and community is important for us. let's start to do away with those negative connotations that we have about Black folks and our communities and our families and our relationships. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And he also had an updated edition in 1972. The first one came out in 1972. He had a 25th edition in 1997. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and to just kind of see, like, we have those things existing in the Temple of Anu. And those are some of the core aspects of what we do here at the temple. The other thing, just a little bit more of like social science stuff, is just this idea of kinship and how we see that as people that function within the Temple of Anu community. And so I saw some interesting things. So we have a couple of terms that fall under kinship. So the first one is called consanguinality, and that's about primary blood-related kinship. Okay, so typically blood, right? And then we have a final, which is kinships that are developed based on if you get married to somebody, okay? And then the last one would be social, and pretty much social is what we do here. So when you have a social kinship, it's not necessarily about who's your blood and who you're married to, or your family of orientation or your family of procreation is what we call it in sociology. It's about these bonds that we develop, based on the relationships that we have with one another. The fact that we have primary relationships, so the folks that are closest to us, these secondary relationships that extend a little bit further outside of who we consider to be in our most intimate relationships, our intimate circles. So with social, you have those things. The other interesting thing about the way kinship bonds work, no matter if they're blood or marriage, the other thing about it is that the way that society is developing now, we have the ability to call who we want our family. We have this amazing way of saying, this is my sister, this is my brother, whether we're related or not. I consider, like Army Kyle, he like being put on the spot. He an Aries, he like that stuff. But anyway, so again, I call him Baba, sometimes. He calls me his daughter sometimes. And I've known Army Kyle for a long time, and because I personally lost my father when I was 16 years old, very young. And when I lost my mother, I was 22 years old. So by the time I came to the Temple of Anu, I was like this young kind of wild woman that was coming here. For the folks that have known me for 20 plus years, I was a little different than the way I am now. Somebody said, "Oh, was that Keyshawn that said that?" She's known me for a long time. I don't know. But anyway, and so so when I came, there were some things that were already lacking. I didn't have my biological parents, so I had this ability to eventually connect to people and say, this is my parental figure, this is my spiritual mother, spiritual father, this is my brother, this is the person I initiated with, so on and so forth. And so we do that. We just connect in that way, and we create our own families. And as society develops, we have to have the ability to do that anyway. As individuals that are in a society, we have to have the ability to adapt to these ever-changing things that happen in society, and a part of that is the institution of family. And so that was something that I recall doing as one of my, my first experiences being here 21 years ago, when I was 22 years old. It's been that long. Yes, it has. Okay. And so basically, I guess I'll get a little crowd participation with this, right? This is easy, all right? I'm not going to ask you to name the 42 laws of Ma'at. Maybe next time we'll do that, okay? So what would be some examples of some of the things that the wording that we use within our community in terms of the way that we relate to each other? So for example, we all call each other sis, brother, sister, brother. What are some other terms that we utilize that denote that we have some type of family type of bond or communal type of bond in here? You just yell it out, no big deal. What else? Family. Any other titles? Moot. Yep, moot. We got a lot of moots in here. We have women elders that we call moots. Don't even matter how old they are. Sometimes I consider him not to be my moot, and I'm older than her. So, by age, wow. Right? Clan. Clan. Yeah, we'll talk about clan a little bit. Because actually clan, if you look at it by definition, it's still saying blood related. Mm-hmm. But the way that we use it here, clan is the folks that you initiate with, right? But that's still our family. Sinette, right? Sinette. Elders. We have all these different titles that we utilize that kind of denote that we've created a family here at the Temple of Anu. I know for me personally, we have all these kids in the temple. We have kids like Ahadu, he's not here, but I remember when Ahadu was born. I remember being at the hospital right before, Ahadu was born. And so we have all these kids that are part of the community. We have the little ones like in the back that are just coming into the world. And I know me personally, even though I don't have my own children, I feel blessed that because I consider you guys to be my family and my community, that I could like yank somebody's kid up if I need to. Believe me, I would never touch anybody's kid. I would not hit anybody's kid. It wouldn't be that. However, I'll give them the look.
You good?
What you doing? Thank you. See, without you even telling me that, I kind of know that. Like, Ahadu was acting up, and I could just tell you, and it's like all good. I'm like, what you doing? So I got the official auntie status, and in the Temple of Anu. And it's all good, and I can tell that everybody is okay with that. It's just another example of how we just kind of fall into these roles of like developing our family and developing these different types of relationships. And I think that's pretty dope, that we have the ability to do that. Somebody mentioned an initiatory system. And so the interesting thing about the Temple of Anu, when you look at it, is that we have all these like inner circles within the Temple of Anu. So you could have a clan, right? Within that clan, nobody could be blood related. Within that clan, it could be a whole family that's a part of one clan. You could have a husband in one clan, a wife in another clan. You could have children in another clan, and so on and so forth. And so that's the interesting way that our dynamic works too, is that we have this larger community, but at the same time, we have these different clans and different relationships that exist within that. And so you could say that that's kind of a unique function to the way that we operate as a community. We have all these different levels of relationships and the way that we see each other and the way that we function as a community. And as I said, we do have family units within the Temple of Anu, and that kind of builds on a bit more about how we define ourselves as a community. The other part about it is that even though, of course, this is like, we're a black, we're Afro-Kemetic, cultural, religious, spiritual organization here, we also have different cultures too, right? And so we have like a lot of folks from the Caribbean, we got folks from different parts of the United States, and so of course that also adds on to the element of how do we define our family, how do we operate, because we have all these different mixings of culture and ethnicity and so on and so forth, to add on to the way that we function as a Temple of Anu. And all of these things are great. These are all good things that kind of help us to build our society or to build our community. And so just to take a little bit of a step back, I wanted to share a little bit more about my personal experience with being in the Temple of Anu and how I know that we have a really amazing, strong support system here. And I can base it on my own experience. And I can say that I can think of two instances since being around the Temple of Anu since 2001 to where something really, really detrimental happened, a big challenge happened in my life. The first one would be August 2011, and that was when I lost my job, all right? And so when you lose a job, that's like pretty major, like that's your money, your health insurance, that's everything. How you gonna pay your bills, So that was a major thing. And then within that week, Kurhab's father passed away within that same week. And so loss of a job and then loss of a person that I considered my father-in-law, because I had known him for 10 years at that point. It was just a real rough, very, very rough time. Mm-hmm. Even just thinking about it now, even though it's been so long, I could feel it here. I could feel that emotional connection to it. But, I'm good. But I remember what I was going through during that time period. And so I lost my job. They took my car, because I could laugh about it now, but back then I was like crying, probably every day because there was just so many things going on. Lost my car, we just had to make things work the way it was at that particular time period. And then on top of that, just dealing with the loss of Mr. Murphy, who was also a May baby like me. He was also a Taurus, so we kind of had that bond too, like, yeah, that's So we had a real good relationship. And so I had some really dark times where I was like, man, how am I going to get out of this? Like, you ever feel like the quicksand is just like on you, and you're trying to crawl out, and it just feels like everything that you try to do, you can meditate like 20 times a day, you could pray 1,000,000 times, you're doing everything that you feel is right, and sometimes it just still feels like, man, this is heavy, I feel like we probably all have went through something like that before, right? But I can recall specifically the folks that are a part of the Temple of Anew that really helped me up, in this particular issue that was going on in my life. I recall that I felt like I didn't have enough money to pay for my red and gold ball dress that year. And I wasn't going to go. I was like, I'm not wearing something that I wore last year. It's like, I'm just not going to go. That's the way I was feeling. I was feeling real salty. It's all good. And so I was like, all right, whatever. And so Hemet had brought me a red and gold dress for that year. And so I ended up going, and I was like, wow, it was just so unexpected. And this is just the support that I'm talking about. I had so many people's ear, people checking in on me, making sure that I was okay. And it was just a great experience to have, because honestly, if I didn't have that support at that time, if I didn't have Kerhev and a host of other people that were a part of the temple and are still here, I don't know how things would have went, to be quite honest. It was a very tough time, okay? The other thing, and so I'm not going to go so much into detail with this, but, a relationship ended last year, and so that was like really, really tough as well. And if you've experienced that before, you know how tough that could be, that whole thing, and the transitioning and moving and all these different types of things. It was really, really tough. That might have been tougher than 2011, but it was really tough. I can look back and reflect on it and say, wow, I can't believe this is where I'm at 1.5 years later. But I'll tell you what I was going through. I have a crew of girls from East Orange, because I grew up in East Orange and Newark, if you didn't know, right? So, ooh, she hood. Uh-oh. She got a razor in her pocket. No, I'm just kidding. I wasn't violent. Anyway, and so I still have a crew of girlfriends that I've known since I was 14 years old. And I needed 2 days to move. And so the first day, when they came and helped me, it was a Saturday. And so they're not Kemetic, right? So the level of help and support from my girlfriends was a lot more different than the level of support that I got the next day when my temple sisters came through and just was like packing it up, doing what they needed to do to help me. The level of support that I got from my girlfriends, it was definitely a little bit more flavor, and that, just to be nice about it. But it was still what I needed at that particular point. Again, looking at it from almost 1.5 years later, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have my community, my support system, my family, the people I consider my family. And as I said, the next day, some temple sisters came through, just threw all my stuff in the box, moved me over to my new space. And again, I don't know what I would have done without you. You all know who you are. I'm who was going to go. She's packing all that stuff up, And so I greatly appreciated, of course, I had Mensura, and Mensura just be helping everybody like he's Superman or something. Did you know that? Anyway, so he's a very supportive brother. Keyside, me and Keyside go back to when I first started coming here. We were doing martial arts together back in 2001. So Keyside's always been a support. Yeah, remember that? And so just a host of other people that were helpful during that particular time period. Again, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have that level of support. Now, here's when things get a little tricky, but I understand that this is the way it works. So just because you have a community and just because you have people that you consider to be your family, it doesn't mean that you have to depend on them forever, okay? So you get the support, and it's kind of like you're a baby bird, like they patch you up, it's like triage, making sure you're good, and they'll hold on to you and make sure that you're good for a while. But then after a while, you have to fly on your own, right? You can't just sit there and be like, I'm still, don't feel well. It's like 3, 4, 5, 6 years later. It just doesn't work that way, because then it starts to become like a drain of energy, right? And so that's the other thing that we have to remember about our family too, is that just because we identify that way and we have that, and we have these awesome people in our lives, we have to make sure that there's still some balance and there's still some reciprocity in the way that that works in our relationship with these folks that we call our family and our community. We have to still recognize, like, at some point I have to move on and I got to be good on my own, right? They never leave you, but you just know that, okay, maybe the phone calls are going to be a little less, and that's okay. Or, now I've had some space and time to meditate and utilize all the tools that we get anyway from the Temple of Anew, and so now you start to just kind of do the work on your own, and you're okay. And they're okay with kind of stepping away a little bit, because they know, like, okay, she's good, he's good, and you just gotta let them be and let them go. So again, we're not draining all these wonderful people that we have in our lives. For the folks online, it's the same thing. Even though you may not be initiated into the Temple of Anew, or you just watch and that's it. The same thing would be for your own personal communities that exist outside of the Temple of Anew, is that there still has to be some type of balance in the way that people support you, and also just knowing when it's time for you to just do your own thing and be on your own and take more of a primary role in your own healing. Okay? I consider us to be very lucky at the Temple of Anew, because we have so many people that do so many different things. We have so many educators. We have people that are educated. We have people that are not educated, and that's totally fine too. They still have amazing skill sets. And so it's almost as if you are experiencing some type of problem, there's somebody that is going to be able to help you. We got everything covered in the Temple of Anew. And so again, when you have those moments where you need that support from your community, we can take advantage of all the different skill sets that we have as a part of our community. But again, just making sure that we don't become takers and we just take. Then, if it becomes that, then it's an imbalanced relationship, and that's not ma'at. And ma'at is everything that we stand on. Ma'at is a part of everything that we do. We live, speak, and do ma'at. Ma'at is in everything. When somebody gets up here and says something about whatever, they're going to talk about ma'at. So that's how deeply entrenched that particular concept is in our life, okay? And so, as I said, we do have a lot of magnificent people that are part of the Temple of Anew. And I also wanted to reflect a little bit on some wisdom texts, some things that I found to really be a part of this discussion that I have about our community. So if you are following, if you have your Husia, it's page 50. And it is page 50, the book of Ketsi. It is verse 2. Okay? Interesting thing about this is that with my Husia, I have it like marked from every time that somebody took a quote out of the book. Me and Kisa be comparing notes when we sit next to each other. But using it in this particular frame, the fact that I have some type of mark from the year 2012, 2013 twice, and so now referencing it again, 2022, it means that what I'm about to say, these are things that we've heard already over and over and over again, so it's not a surprise, right? And so this verse 2, book of Ketsi, is following the footsteps of your ancestors, for the mind is trained through knowledge. Behold, their words endure in their books. Open and read through them and follow their wise counsel. For one who is taught becomes skilled. Do not be evil, for kindness is good. That's the part. Make the memory of you last through love of you. Multiply the people whom the city shelters, and then God will be praised for your donations. And the people will give thanks for your goodness and pray for your health. And so when I look at that particular passage, it just reminds me of this giving that we do. It also reminds me of how we have to give to ourselves and utilize our skill sets for our own well-being as well. And there's so many different ways that you can look at that particular passage. And it also reminds me of some of the folks that have helped me through my difficult times, is that they're following the footsteps of the ancestors. We're following the wisdoms that we see in our wisdom text, and that's also a part of the motivation for why we do what we do for each other. I have two more. So now we're moving to the book of Ptah-hotep, and this is page 45, and it is verse 12. And just so that you can see the dates for this passage, right? December 2011, April 2013, 2016, 2018. So again, we've been getting in this book for a while. I just keep marking down the dates, and then here again in 2022. Share with your friends that which you have, for that which is yours is a gift of God. Again, just an echo of community and family and what we do for each other. Those who fail to share with their friends are shunned for having a selfish soul. Although people might plan for tomorrow, they do not know what will come to pass. But it is righteousness, ma'at, by which people are sustained. Therefore, if misfortune comes and you've been righteous with your friends will welcome you. Peace will not be found in a city where friends are forgotten and their needs not answered. Again, you could probably meditate on that. You could journal on that passage. There's so many different things that we can speak of when we're talking about our own personal character and the way that's reflected in our community for our benefit, for our own benefit, for our children, for everything. And it's just endless and endless. Last passage from the Hosea is page 47. And then it is 18, okay? Last time on the dates. So April 28th, 2013, May 11th, 2014, right? So we've heard this before if you've been around for a while. Be generous as long as you live. What goes into the storehouse should not come out. I remember this. We've heard this so many times. For bread is made to be shared, right? Those whose bellies are empty turn into accusers, and those who are deprived become opponents. See that none such as these are your neighbors. Generosity is memorial for those who show it, long after they have departed. And so when I look at that passage, it's not just what we give in terms of like money or sharing like tangible items. Part of that is your energy and your time, and how that contributes to those that are in need. Part of that is just, your energy that goes into building this community into something greater. A lot of times we do talk about, why don't we have this? Why don't we have a building? Why don't we, we hear those things all the time, right? And so we have to remember that we have to make sure all the little things are in check first. We have to make sure that we're checking in on one another. We have to make sure that the relationships that we have here first are intact. We have to make sure that, we're reliable to each other, that we are reliable people. We have to make sure that just the community as we operate now is intact before we can think about things that are supposed to be greater and bigger and better than what we see here on a day-to-day basis or every time we have communion or some other type of function. Okay. And so with all the good stuff, about the community and what it could be and what it is and what it has been for me, I just want to talk a little bit about what we're not, what we should not be when we talk about this word of community and family, right? And so, me personally, I don't see the temple, right, as a temple that is a continuous giver. And let me explain that. I mean as if, if somebody is in need, I don't, if I was in need, I don't expect for the temple every 6 months I have an issue, and they're doing something for me or giving something to me. And I don't expect that in my relationships from people either. I feel like if it's that bad to where, I feel like if it's that bad, that definitely means that I need to do some self-reflection first, right? I feel like that should come first as opposed to, I have some type of issue, let me come to the temple, let me see how they can fix my life. We're not fix our life, in the way we are actually, but it can't be a continuous thing to where it's You know, we're always expecting like handouts and, you know, and it's not even necessarily like being given anything, but the energy that we put into people that, you know, constantly you're being plagued with challenges. And so it's not wrong, right? It's okay to make sure we want to support each other, but after a while, if that continues to be your pattern of behavior, that means that you need to do some more internal self-reflection to figure out and see, like, okay, what do I need to do differently, right? And so really, it's not a bad thing to say that. It's not a bad thing to say that. If you at least have the ability to have that insight and be like, man, last year I was in the same exact spot that I was in like the year before, and 6 months later, you know, still the same thing. Okay, so now you got the insight, and that's good. So now once you have that insight, then you have the ability to use those tools. And we get so many tools, don't we? We have so many tools that we're taught here. Is this still loud enough? I feel like it's loud. Okay. And so, I mean, we don't need to go through everything, but definitely as initiates, I mean, we get well equipped with things that are supposed to help us out. You know, the wisdom text, meditation. You know, if you definitely need a reading, you can get a reading. You know, we have all these different things. Keyside getting up here and talking about the astrological energy. We have so many different things. And then a lot of things that we have here, it's not like, you know, Keyside gets up here and we have to give her like $100 every time she gets up here. I feel like a lot of the stuff that people just give in terms of their energy, and it's like quote unquote free, is something that we should probably give for sure, because it's just so much heavy information that we're being given. And if you pay attention and you listen to it, it really is life-changing. It really is. I think everybody that has been here long enough, you could attest to that. You know, like, yeah, that's true. Like, when I was going through A, B, and C, you know, I was provided with D, E, and F. And it was something that was life-changing. And on top of that, you probably won't go back to that challenge again, because you've learned the lesson and you did the work. You did what was needed to transgress that particular issue that was going on in your life, right? And so that kind of creates some type of balance too. Your ability to kind of solve some of your problems with the tools that you have, and then just getting some support when you need it, that's balance, so that it doesn't become a drain on one person versus the other. That's still balance. You get the support, and then you utilize your tools, and you become primary in your own personal healing, no matter what that particular issue is. So I think I keep saying that to say, like, we just want to make sure and be guarded and be careful that we're not continuously draining, you know, the same set of people over and over and over again, right? We don't want to be a drain to our own community, right? Especially since we're already fighting the outside world. You know, and here it feels great. I love coming to communion. Like, I wanted to be like this every day. Like, you know, I just see everybody's face every day, right? The folks that have been to the retreats, we haven't been in like 3 years. Yeah, 2019 was the last time that we went. And so when you've been, is it not like your dreams, right? That's what it feels like. It's like, man, if I could wake up every day and have like vegetables from the farm, I'll stay positive. But, you know, like, for the most part, everything at Pumpkin Hollow is dope, okay? I'll just say that. You wake up, it's fresh air, you're in the mountains, you know, you got that brook, you got the waterfall, you can put you know, just so many great things. You got these, like, little houses, and you wake up and you see another Kemite. I mean, that's dope. You know, I think that's what we all want at some point before we transition. Will we see it? We'll see. Let's be positive, right? But I think it's still something that we all would want to see. If it's not going to be for us in this lifetime as a community, I know that the parents in here and other parental figures are trying to prep the kids for that, you know, to be good and diligent Kemites and to have all the tools that they're going to need to carry this legacy and this journey on, you know, even after we transition physically. And so, you know, again, maybe it may not happen in our lifetime, but we're setting up the future for those things to happen. And so this community will go on and on and on, even after we have long transitioned into, you know, the next realm. And so I see that on a day-to-day basis. But again, we just want to make sure that we're doing our best to add on as opposed to draining, being a drain to our own community, because we have a lot of other things outside of the temple of Anu that we have to focus on and still keep ourselves in check. You know, in a world of people that are not us. You know, that's enough of a battle, so we don't need that battle and that drain inside of our precious community that we have here. So another thing, family is not just simply saying, hey, Sinette, hey, Sin, and that's it. Okay, you could label people all day, you know. It has to go beyond that. It has to go into what type of relationships you actually have with people. If your sin or Sinette was going through something detrimental, would you be there in some shape or form? You know, those are questions that you need to ask yourself. Utilizing these superficial terms to refer to each other gets old real quick. You know, hey, Sin, hey, Sinette, and then that's it. It's nothing else beyond that, right? You wouldn't do anything for that person. You know, you wouldn't help them out in an emergency. It's just superficial. You know, you can't just take a picture and label it, this is my Sinette from the Temple of Anu. And I'm just using this as an example. That becomes superficial too. So now it's like social media types of things. Like, I'm doing this to take a picture so that we look good, or whatever the case may be. But then when you look at it in the background, it's like, but what type of relationship do you have with that person? You know? I'm speaking for myself too. I mean, anytime that I think and ponder on things, I start with myself, right? I start with, well, what are my relationships like with people? You know, could I do more? I'll admit right now, we had so many clans come in over the last few years. I'm still learning names a little bit. Does everybody know everybody's like full clan name? I don't, okay? So I'll put that out there. I'm still learning, okay? And so I could do better with that. You know, maybe, you know, my life gets so busy sometimes, maybe I could do better with just keeping, you know, regular contact with people. And that's okay. So it comes back to that insight. And then, you know, once you have that insight, then you move forward with, well, how am I going to do better? You know, how am I going to connect deeper with people? Maybe I'm going to just ask somebody to hang out with me so that we could establish a different level of a relationship. And you do that one by one, and before you know it, it's even more of a stronger community that we have. And so, you know, those are things to kind of think about. Also, I guess this connects to is initiation. And so with initiation, you know, I know when I initiated over 10 years ago, I took it as like a lifelong thing for me, you know. I knew that there would be challenges in terms of like my own path and what my initiatory process looks like. And, you know, we all know that. We're always on this path of trying to be the best person and reaching our highest self. We're all on that path. But, you know, I still don't understand how some can just come into an initiatory process, get initiated, and then you pop right back out. And so what the temple is not is double dutch, right? It's not jump rope. You know, you can't just hop in, hop out, you know, after you did that whole initiatory process. Like, to me, that's crazy. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry, but that's crazy. And so that's also a part of this, like, idea of community, too. It's like, so now you got people that are initiating. You hop in for a little bit. You can't take whatever you couldn't take. I don't know all the details of why people decide to leave. And then you dip one out. And so that kind of takes away from the community too. That takes away from energy. That takes away from resources. It takes away in so many different ways. And so how do you expect the community to grow if you can't do what you need to do as an initiate to hang around and stay and contribute and to work through your own issues and just leave? And so that's another thing too. You know, when things get tough, you got to work through it. You know, you have a clan, so then you have a clan of people that you can talk to about different things, that they can provide some type of support. You have the Saru for any more deeper information that you may need. You have the Royal Court. You have anybody in here that you're close to help move you through that process as opposed to running or leaving when things get tough. And so that's very disruptive to the community too, you know? So that's the other thing. Yeah, and just basically like we're not seasonal. You can't just in the summertime hang out and by fall you're done already. You know, it's just this idea of the initiatory process is something that you're supposed to take very, very seriously. And if you really want to contribute to something that is greater and bigger than who you are, you have to stick around for the challenges. Okay? Yes. Thank you. And so just a few more things. So I started talking about this already, how even now, even if you look at the literature on your own, it's still pretty negative in terms of the Black community, right? The Black community, right? So that's how you hear it. And I feel like when people say those words, like there's this automatic like negative connotation attached to it, right? You know, we have these broken families, you know, we don't have unity, there's so much violence in the community. You know, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And I know that us here, I want to say in general, we're probably already familiar with those things and how those different systems work, the systematic racism, you know, the fact that there's racism in every social institution in the United States, you know, that's the way that it works, and it hasn't changed that much. It's been like that since the inception of this country. It's been that way when we were on our way over on the Middle Passage, you know, so it's been this deeply entrenched thing in the United States. And so, you know, I know that those are some of the reasons why people still see us that way. I'm not necessarily so concerned with the way that people see us, but I am concerned about the way that we do community here. You know, even for example, you know, I don't know if people really know much about this, but, you know, the state that we're quote unquote in, we can't deny the fact that a lot of that was largely like outside forces as to the reason why, right? And so what about, you know, living in a predominantly Black neighborhood in the 1960s and all of a sudden they decide to build a freeway through your community, right? And so, and this is real stuff, and this happened in East Orange too. You know, we had a nice little Black community in East Orange, and they built those freeways, and yeah, that divided entire Black communities, right? You can think about this going on in the South, in Alabama, and New Orleans, and Tennessee, and Nashville. There were a lot of different thriving and Black communities that were already happening, that were okay with being segregated from the rest of the country, okay? That were completely fine with that, but you know, things still happen. You know, redlining and all these different things still happen on purpose to create detriment within the Black community. So then when people keep saying, y'all just can't get it together, what about those things, right? That was outside of us. And it wasn't like this thing, I mean, just still going on this example of like how the highways destroyed some Black communities. The argument might be, well, it's just the way that it had to be. It just worked out best within the Black community that we had to divide with a highway. But if you look at the research, there's research that says that you could have went a completely opposite way and it didn't have to destroy any community, but they still did. Why? Because it had to be on purpose. It was divisive, literally, right? You know, so we have those things. We have the fact that if you want to go all the way back to the enslavement period, that our families weren't recognized. You know, we had families, we had our own ideas of families. We had ideas of family way back when we were still in the west coast of Africa that we brought with us in the different parts of the world that we were dropped off in. But of course, it had to be taken away, right? All these different cultural relics that we had as Africans, it was just destroyed, you know, even way back then. Right. And it continued on even after slavery. Right. And so, okay, you know, some folks will say, just get over it. It's not the 1960s anymore. Okay. But still, it's caused us to create this catch-up game in terms of, you know, in terms of having the ability to have this strong community and so many other things that our history, you know, really did to create some detrimental effects on who we are as a people. Indeed. Right? And so when I look at everybody here, when I look at my community, it's almost as if those things don't exist, because when I look at everyone here, we have so many bright and powerful and beautiful people in this community. It's like dysfunctional, not my community, you know, family. I got family here, you know? And so that's what I see. But it's still an issue. It's still an issue just in terms of like the way that they see us in terms of unity and, having this like concept and idea of just dysfunctionality when they do see groups of Black people. But again, if we want to still make sure that we're checking ourselves and providing insight to ourselves and taking a look around our community that I think is still awesome and great, nothing is perfect, right? And so you still want to self-reflect and think about if you're doing your best in terms of contributing, creating some growth, contributing your skill set, not being a drain on a community. We still need to check ourselves from time to time. And am I getting too busy to where I don't have time for my community? Where do I place the Temple of Anew in terms of primary in my life? Is it central to my life? Am I connecting that to my audit principles? Am I connecting that to what, the things that my ancestors did back in the past, because that's a part of what we do too. Going from the past and connecting that to the way that we live now. So there's always still some room for growth and insight in terms of what we can do differently. Maybe we need to go bowl more often, right? It might be something. We used to do that. We used to have like a whole, social calendar to where we would take the kids and go bowling. Sometimes we would skate. Sometimes we have some things at somebody else's house if it was big enough. And so we've had that before, and so maybe we need to entertain doing more of that if possible, right? Just it could be simple things. It doesn't have to be something really major, but just what can we do a little bit differently so that we can know the next person next door to us or the person that's sitting behind us? What can we do to strengthen those bonds and strengthen those relationships, right? I feel like probably everybody here is trying to reclaim something or has tried to reclaim some aspect of your identity and of your culture. Maybe you already feel like you've done it already, being a part of the Temple of Anew. Maybe you're a new face, and so now you're at the beginning stages of your journey. And, all of that is okay. All of that is okay. There's a lot of different aspects to this reclamation of who we are as people. One of the other things that we still need to pay attention to is making sure we're as unified as we can be. Right. Making sure that we have a level of trust, loyalty, respect for one another here in the Temple of Anew, or if there's another community outside of you, if you're not an initiate of the Temple of Anew. Just trying to think about that. What is your community made of? Reflecting and going back to reclaiming who you are and making sure that those bonds are tight and strong within your own communities. Okay? All right. And so the last part is just going to be more about self-reflection, self-mastery, insight into your own self. And so, as I said before, the support that we receive here is great. But also we have to reciprocate within our community as well. Okay? And so we should be a support as well, especially if you are somebody that needed something at a certain point. Like I said, I was somebody twice over. I really needed a lot of support within the community. And so, you have to think about, well, that energy was expended on me. It certainly helped me in my time of need. What can I do in order to add on or to give back within the community? It doesn't have to always be something physical. It doesn't have to always be money. Although I know that, we would take money. Donations are always welcome, as Samet says, I think. Anyway, so that's okay. That's fine. But again, the energy, the time that we put into one another. I mean, I feel like sometimes that's kind of overlooked in terms of how you contribute, Looking at your skill set. We all have skill sets. It doesn't mean that you have to have like a master's or a bachelor's or a doctorate. Those things are cool, but and I'm one of those. I mean, I have degrees too, but then there's other people that without having a degree, major skill set in terms of how they're already contributing to our community. What is your skill set? Identify that, and how can you make that fit into the community? If there's some type of space or some type of crack in our community, what can you do to What can you do to add on to patch it up, you know? And that still takes self-reflection. You know, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And how can I utilize those strengths in this community that I respect and love so much and that has done, you know, so much for me. Also, so you know, like with these tough red groups, right? So you have to make sure that, you know, if you're a part of your TEP Red group or any other type of group that, you know, you're a part of it, that you contribute to it, that you attend your meetings, that you're an active participant in your TEP Red groups, because it's not just a TEP Red group, it's almost like a test of how are you with other people, right? And so if you're not able to hold down that responsibility, stop dreaming much bigger than a TEP Red group if you can't hold that down, if you can't make meetings and contribute, you know? Right. There may be something about the way that you value yourself too. I mean, if you feel like, oh, my absence it won't be a big deal. Nobody's gonna miss me. I can miss meetings. I don't need to contribute. I can just fly under the radar. You know, that's not necessarily a good thing to do because it kind of shows that maybe you devalue yourself. And you probably are much more valuable than you realize. You know, speak, open your mouth, contribute. You may have something that you need to say that somebody needs to hear at that point, but because you're not there and you're not fulfilling the charge, you know, that we had during the summertime, that's weakening the group. You know, people are missing out on your experiences and what you have to say. Right. So, you know, not taking things like that so lightly. Participate in your TEP Red groups, you know, come to Kemmunion, talk to people, come to all the holidays. You know, there's so many different ways that we have all these opportunities to bond and connect and to help each other, more than what we realize, you know. So when you are absent, you know, your presence is missed. Somebody's missing something about you, and it could be something major and you don't even realize it. So just think about those things when you're kind of flying under the radar. Okay. Yeah. Okay, and so, yeah, we talked about untapped resources. The other thing is when you think about the community, you have to also think about the type of person that you are. And so if we're so vested into creating a strong community and creating these strong family bonds, it has to start with you, right? So you can't show up, you know, just like raggedy and off the hook, like you got, for lack of a better word. You just have to make sure that yourself is in check as well, right? You don't want to be like a community member and you're just like out here just kind of doing whatever. You know, you have to always make sure that you're doing the best that you can for yourself as an individual. Always making yourself a better person. Why would you not want to make yourself a better person? Why would you not want to utilize the tools to keep you going higher and higher and higher, reaching your highest level? So you're doing it for yourself, true, but then you're also doing it for the community, because the better that you are, all this strength adds on to the light that we create as amazing and beautiful and powerful people, you know, as people of Ra, you know? So that's a part of it too. Working on yourself is also in turn working to improve the community. You improve yourself, you improve the community. It all kind of works together, okay? And all of that is self-mastery, you know, and that's something that's a continuous thing that we're working on, or I hope it is, but, you know, that's something that we're always constantly working on as people of the Temple of Anu or some other community outside of the Temple of Anu, if you're not a part of us, if you're not initiated, so on and so forth. And so I think I do have maybe one more thing that I wanted to quote from. This is a thick book, okay, but it's amazing. And it's necessary. Yes, it is necessary, brother. So, yeah, it's the Ma'at book, Guiding Principles of Moral Living. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it right, but Ife, Kilimanjaro, Tadika, Kilimanjaro, Taka. I was waiting for you, Sanjay. I was like, he's going to correct me. Kilimanjaro, Yara, Aneb, Seba, and Gamba Haru, Elder. I did all right with that? All right. And so this book is great. I mean, it just has so much information in it. I couldn't distill all of it, right, because it's a big book. But one of the things that, one of many things that stood out in this book, I came to a part, if you have the book, or if you're going to get the book, it's page 245. And it's the section, Intelligence of the Heart, Aku Jedes. And it's under Moral System. And let me just make sure I have the right passage. Oh, and it's on self-sufficiency. It's on self-sufficiency. Just give me 1 second. I might have lost the exact spot that I'm trying to get to. Oh, 246, that's the problem. Okay. So there's a section called Strive for Self-Sufficiency. And so this just kind of goes back to self-responsibility, self-mastery, keeping yourself in check, self-insight, that type of thing. So it says, the more you seek solutions within yourself, the less dependent on others you are. Within your hands are the tools to define your purpose and forge the path towards its fulfillment. To realize and solve problems, to take charge of your destiny, or have someone else define it. Take charge of your own thinking. Rouse yourself from the days of unexamined habits. And so and as I said, there are so many other things that are about that book. I kept reading it and I was like, man, I can't put all of this in my communion for today, but this one was definitely relevant for kind of how I wanted to end it. And so even though my talk was more so about community, family, our ideas of family, how we define it, how it's helped us, how we can be supported by our community, our family, it still goes back to self is the point, right? It still always goes back to the self. And you have to make sure that you're doing the necessary self-inquiry and making sure that you're pointing your finger back at yourself when you are trying to figure things out in your life, right? And being self-sufficient. So yes, you can be a part of a community and have relationships. All these things are important. If you look at that book, there's a section that reinforces that too. Like, making sure that you have respectful and strong bonds with the people that you consider to be a part of your community. Like, that's also in this book. But I just wanted to point that out to show, like, again, there's still this balance that has to exist between being a part of the community, receiving support when you need it, but also being a light for yourself so you can be a light for the community. And in turn, when somebody else needs it, because somebody else will, you'll have the tool set, you'll have the experience, and you'll have the wisdom to help them and to contribute. And so that's how the community goes as well. Okay, I promise this is like the last part, and then I'm hitting an hour. I can't believe I did an hour already. Okay, this is the last part, and then I'm done. So lastly, it comes back to the individual, as I said, regarding this book, the Ma'at book, right? So just some things to think about. If you are in constant mode, wait, hold on, that's not right. Oh, if you're I was missing a word. So if you're in constant survival mode, it means that you have to make yourself the center of intense inquiry. We hear that all the time. If you are constantly a victim, make yourself the center of intense inquiry. If you don't trust some of your personal skill sets, that means you gotta dig deeper to understand why that is. What's the problem with that? Why don't you trust yourself? Why don't you have the confidence? If you rely too much on the physical world and not enough on your ancestors or the Netzeru, that's definitely a deep problem, right? Because you gotta have balance with that too. It can't just be the things that you touch and see with your senses. It can't just be that. You also have to make sure that you have an established strong connection with your ancestors and with the Netzeru and your spiritual system, and you're doing this work day in and day out, because that will also help you to figure some things out on your own. And again, it still goes back to what you do as an individual creates good for the community as well. Because in the end, it always comes back to us, and we have to make sure that we are being responsible to ourselves. In order for us to be responsible individuals, It's going to also make us responsible in the way that we interact with our community. This nation building that people still continue to talk about, it starts within the individual.
True.
And so that is it, y'all. Thank you for listening to me.
You are.
Thank you. Appreciate the drums, brothers. Thank you very much. Taking donations.
Can everyone please stand? Can we say we are all going in peace and satisfaction? Left foot forward. Shamim Atep.
Shamim Atep.
Dianu, Uncle Jocelyn.
Dianu, Uncle Jocelyn.
Open, give energy. Bring it into the body, and on the count of 3, stomp with your right foot to ground it out. 1, 2, 3. One to everyone, and to our Facebook and YouTube audiences, we thank you for your time and energy today. We also thank you for the reciprocity that you show our community in exchange for the energy and the wisdom that you all received today. Donations can be sent by PayPal to templeavenue@gmail.com or by Cash App $Temple Avenue. We'll see you all in 2 weeks for our next regularly scheduled communion. Shamim Atep, everyone.
Shamim Atep.